This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm really excited about today's guest, Steve Westfeld. He's an entrepreneur, and we're going to talk about how AI can be used in these new entrepreneurial endeavors. And Steve uses AI in sports betting, and we're going to talk about all about this. Again, none of this is financial advice, but I'm really happy to talk about the future of AI in sports and talk about entrepreneurs in this space. So, Steve, welcome.
Hey, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you have an interesting story about how turning adversity into advantage, and kind of lay the groundwork how you started your company, and it's gonna be a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, so I was a sports fan kind of all my life. And when sports betting became legal in my state, I think it was back in 2020, I started kind of looking at it and playing around a little bit and didn't really have any idea what I was doing. And I got on Google one day and I was like, man, there's got to be places out there or places where people sell picks or they sell like, hey, I think this team is going to do better than this team. And I didn't know what I was looking for at the time, but it's called kind of the sports handicapping industry.
Mm.
And the other thing I didn't know is that it is fraught with crooks and cheats and people who will say anything they can to take your money and sell you their garbage picks.
Mm.
So I was young and naive, and I started, subscribing to this one service, and they claimed that they would that they had this really good win percentage. They were winning like 55 to 60% of their bets against the spread, which is a profitable model. And so I bought into their entry level package for, I think it was a couple $1,000s, and I started winning all the time. And for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 weeks, I was doing well. I had already basically won back my initial investment. And I was like, man, there's something to this. And I can maybe kind of become a full-time sports bettor.
Mm.
So they went on this super hot streak right when I went in, and they knew how to leverage it, and they put the screws to me as far as sales tactics. And they said, hey, we know you've been doing well. We have this next tier package up. It's like $70,000, but you get the most premier of the premier picks. You get access for a full year. There's only a handful of people in the country who even have access to these. And if you thought how you won before was good, we will win way more with this new package.
Mm.
And I did the math and I looked and I was like, man, if what they're claiming is true, then there is certainly some money to be made here. And I looked at their win record on the package I had bought, and I was profitable. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So I bought in, and all said and done, I was about $70,000 into this thing, and their track record absolutely went into the toilet from pretty much from that moment on. And fast forward a year or year and a half, and it was not a profitable service at all. It was actually a total joke. It was probably, some guys who had really, really good sales tactics who were just sitting there guessing on how they thought games would go. And long story short, I was out the initial money, I was out the initial fee, and so I was like, man, I can stink and do this better than these guys. Like I can make a better model to predict sporting games. I had to figure out a way to get my money back. So I started coding up this algorithm that we've now kind of coined as Remy. And it's an AI algorithm that analyzes data points on all kinds of games. And Remy started doing really well, and I started winning a lot at sports betting. I actually won enough that 3 sports books have banned me or blacklisted me from playing with them because I am no longer a welcome customer. And Remy continues to do pretty well. It's hovering between 55 and 56% right now is the track record. And any sports bettor would know that anything over 52% against the spread is going to be profitable, or 52.4%. And Vegas was built on this 1 to 2 to 3% margin, and that's what the algorithm so far seems to have against the spread. And so we created this company called LeansAI, and we sell the data that Remy produces to subscribers. They can sign up free for 30 days, check it out, and see what Remy says about the games going on today.
Yeah. It's interesting, just kind of the use of AI and are, basically, are you gonna be, is AI gonna be like kind of you know, someone people use as the cheat the system, kind of like, card counting back in, when 21, I think the movie 21, that was
Hmm.
really in like the MIT blackjack team.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's gonna be interesting to what, creative entrepreneurs kind of come up to beat the house, especially, you take Vegas money, they're gonna start screaming and yelling. So
Yeah, they definitely pay attention to how much you win from them, and if you win too much, they definitely cut you off.
yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting. So we'll talk, we're just talking, and these are just concepts, this is not advice or anything. These are, very risky things, but
Yeah.
yeah.
There are a lot of ways to lose a lot of money sports betting. That is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little bit, this is interesting, AI and sports betting, and in your journey with Lane's AI, what made you come up with how did Remy come up with that name, and how have you seen AI machine learning revolutionizing this field, and what makes your algorithm stand out in predicting these outcomes?
Yeah, so the name Remy actually came from my sister-in-law, and everyone heard it for the first time, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect. It's simple, it's short, it's sweet, and it just seemed to fit really well, kind of with the brand we were building. But as far as the AI itself, AI is fascinating. It's certainly a love hate. I mean, you can get on Chat GPT and you can type in some stuff and it will give you amazing answers, and then you can type in another question and it will give you absolute trash garbage for an answer. So I think AI has a long ways to go. But one of the fascinating things about it is void of human emotion or bias, at least in the sports betting realm. And so one of the things that we've seen is if I'm a human sports handicapper or a human sports bettor, and I look at a game and I try to make a prediction on how that game is going to trend, I'm going to pull on my own history of experiences and maybe emotion on whether I like one team versus another team, or whether I like one coach versus another coach, and certain situations. And I'm going to pull on all of these kind of emotionally biased things to weight my prediction towards this game. And all of that is fraught with all kinds of different layers of bias. I mean, my memory is not perfect of my own experience. My memory is not omniscient, so it doesn't remember everything about these coaches and everything about these games, mostly because I wouldn't have even learned it. And human bias is all throughout that equation. AI, on the flip side, is void of human emotion or bias. And obviously you can have, humans are training this, and so you can start to have bias in some of the training methods or things like that. But typically the human emotion is stripped out of it. And so what we've seen is that AI tends to be far more consistent over the long period of time than emotional humans at predicting how a game is likely to trend. And that's one of the big advantages that we've found. A lot of people don't know this, but when Vegas sets a line on a game, they are not trying to predict the outcome of a game. They are trying to split money evenly on both sides of that line, because they know if they can get half the money on one side and half the money on the other side, then they'll take their little cut called juice, and they'll walk away and they'll profit regardless of how the game goes. What we're trying to do is we're trying to actually predict how likely it is for a team to win a game down to the hundredth of a percent. And so anytime that we see that the game analytics don't match the line that has been set by Vegas where they're trying to split money, then that creates a lean or an advantage to one side of that line or spread. And that's how we've built our whole business model.
Interesting. I've always found these markets very interesting, especially hedging,
Yep.
arbitrage.
Yep.
Where does all of this fit? Because I've heard of this new area called prediction markets, and I mean, it sounds like sports betting is kind of one aspect of prediction mark because you can like I know there's people predict you know I'm not sure, I don't want to say gambling, but they're trading on like climate, they're trading on
Hmm.
interest rates, who's gonna be
Elections.
yeah, yeah,
There's huge markets for all kinds of elections, presidential elections, and House and Senate, and all that stuff.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, very fascinating, and just kind of the arbitrage. And I've always been fascinated with people and making a living in Vegas, like professional poker players, and just it's really fascinating to me. So the other question is insider insights, and you mentioned human behavior in sports is you know uh, predictable. Can you elaborate on how this predictability plays a crucial role in your AI algorithm success in sports analytics?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, there's the common saying that be careful of history because it tends to repeat itself, or some flavor of that saying. And it's amazing how often something pops up and humans behave exactly the same way, just in general. And then you start to confine that more to sports, where I put, a defined boundary on it, like a court or a sideline, or a stadium, like a baseball field. I put walls all around it and foul ball lines. Then I put the players in a confined time. So, I've got a clock on the game that's running the whole time. And then I put rules around how the game is played, and I put officials to enforce those rules and make sure those rules are followed. And when you start to put that level of constraints on human behavior, it becomes incredibly repeatable time and time again on how humans behave in certain scenarios and how things start to trend. And you could start to look for patterns. And that's actually one of the things that AI is fantastic at, is pattern recognition over a long period of time. And so it's phenomenal to me to see what the AI comes up with, and then see how it's better than me for sure at picking how a game is likely to trend. And situations will show up, and humans are just repeatable. And even coaches too. I mean, you think about coaches with their job on the line, they are more likely to go with what's been done 1,000 times before and not have to answer questions about it than they are to do something absolutely crazy and risk their job. And so time and time and time again, sports tend to be repeatable. And then one of the other things that we look at is this concept we call score fidelity, where it's the scoring mechanism of a sport. And if you think about hockey, if there's 5 or 6 goals typically scored in a game, and a goal is scored, then that's a 1 out of 6 chance of a single scoring play changing the outcome of a game, or like an 18% chance. But on basketball, if I have 230 points scored in an NBA game and somebody hits a 3 pointer, that's 3 divided by 230, or that's a 1.3% chance of a single scoring play changing the outcome of a game. So we also look at just how volatile sports are, and kind of random they are based on their inherited scoring mechanisms, and are a lot of points scored or are just a couple of points scored, and build all that into the predictions as well.
Yeah, interesting. Talk about ethics and legality, and what advice you'd offer to new seasoned about navigating the ethical legal aspects and how to do so responsibly.
Yeah. Do you want to go down the AI road or the sports betting road? Because they're two very different answers.
Let's do AI because AI is kind
Okay.
of yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I am the absolute wrong person to ask on that, and the reason why is I've seen enough things with AI to be terrified of where we're going to be in 5 to 10 years. So I try to put blinders on that far out. and only focus on kind of what we have in front of us now. I am certainly not a good policy guy when it comes to long-term vision on how to bound this thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think it's powerful. I think it's scary. I think it's dangerous, and I really hope that we're able to get the right people investing it, the right people putting guardrails on it, and we use it for good, because there is a lot of bad stuff that can come from using it the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, AI is just in its infancy, and I've seen it used in so many cases this year, and it's just incredible. And it's almost without a doubt, it's something's gonna happen where you got to put guardrails, or it's like social media and all these. The other question follow-up is future of AI in sports, and how do you see AI machine learning continuing to shape the landscape of sports betting and handicapping, and what are some emerging trends or strategies that you believe will become significant in the near future?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One of the things that we've noticed is so AI tends to work best when it has mountains of data, and the more, almost seemingly, the more data you put into it, the better within reason. However, this last year we saw two fascinating things happen in sports. So in baseball, we saw the pitch clock get brought up from the minor leagues. It was implemented in the major leagues for the first year, and our algorithm absolutely sucked for April, the whole month of April, when it was first exposed to the pitch clock, because it was seeing patterns and trends that it had never seen before in the past. And that plays out in all kinds of ways, like the pitcher can't go to first as many times, or base is getting stolen, we're up. And then you start to get the California rule in extra innings was also in there. And when it's looking at data from the past, and then it's looking at what it's seeing now, it's kind of a mismatch, or it's kind of apples to oranges, just because of these subtle differences. I mean, even high pressure situations with the pitch clock, some people perform amazing and some people perform terrible, and it like put a microscope on those little instances, and lit a fire under it, and just created all of these outcomes that we were not there, that the AI was not prepared for. And it took about 2 months for the AI to kind of figure out how to start to predict baseball games
Mm.
once a new thing was thrown in, like the pitch clock. We saw the same thing this fall with the NBA in-season tournament, where all of a sudden, 2 nights a week, I think it was 2 nights a week, games actually matter in November and December, and teams actually play hard, and teams actually play defense. And that's different than any year previously, where games do not matter at all really in November or December. And it threw the AI off. And so one of the things that that I think I could predict going forward is that as long as sports tend to stay kind of the same, and
Yeah.
tend to stay, fairly repeatable, the AI is going to be pretty good at predicting that. But as soon as a wrench gets thrown in, or rules get changed, or this or that or the other gets changed, it's definitely going to take a minute for the AI to kind of start to figure out what is this new thing I'm seeing, and how can I learn from it. And I think it's the same thing, just with AI in a broader context. Is if it's seeing things that it's seen before, it tends to be pretty good. And as soon as you throw something new at it, or slightly tweaked at it, it can be worse than it can be good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how how this whole world adapts and change the AI, because it's gonna be disruptive. I'm sure they're gonna, their profit margins are gonna shrink, and see how they adjust. And how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so the website that we have is leans.ai, leans.ai, and you can come see exactly how the algorithm is performing at predicting these sports games. We cover the four major pro sports in the U.S., plus college basketball and college football. And if you want to see what Remy says about the games today, you can sign up for a free 30-day trial and give it a go.
Yeah. And for all the audience out there, let's thank Steve for coming on. Like I said, really turning adversity to an advantage, and this new burgeoning field, prediction markets, in particular sports betting, and how AI is going to fit into all of this. Really interesting. Be sure to follow him on all of his socials. These will be in the links and show notes. And with that, Thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
You got it. Thank you for having me.